All right, everybody, we have an interesting trademark case here. Law 360 is reporting that HBO is suing a Rancho Santa Ana botanic garden named Game of Thorns. Now, this is super interesting because normally when you have a trademark, you have that trademark only for one category of commerce, only for the category of commerce that you're doing business in. So lawful masses would be legal education or video production or both or something. But you really wouldn't find lawful masses farms. I mean, like, that might be cool later on for me to be part of a farm, but I'm probably not going to call it lawful masses. So if somebody out there really, really wanted to, I'm not giving them permission or waiving any rights here, but I'm not sure that I have the ability to stop them from using lawful masses in connection with farming or boating or cars. Like, that's how these works. You can have Apple computers and you can have well, that doesn't work. Who else is using Apple? Apple Music, except that, of course, that was the Beatles and then Apple
Mhm.
licensed that, so that doesn't work. Trademark law does allow you to own the trademark in your category, plus any categories that you would reasonably expand into. So maybe a computer software programmer might be able to argue that a game company shouldn't be able to use their trademark because they're both computer software. Maybe the computer game belongs in a different subcategory or something. There is something called the famous mark rule or
Mhm.
protection for very famous marks. You would not be able to register Coca-Cola Farms. You would not be able to register um, Comcast Farms. Once a mark does reach a certain level of famousness, then you can't. Then it's expected that that person has that mark for all categories, and that could be what HBO is arguing here. So why don't we turn to that and see if that is what's going on? Okay, so this then is HBO's notice of opposition. This is all public information here, so I'm not worried about these addresses. This is all business information. So the original or the opposition mark is Game of Thrones, of course, which is registered in Class 009, pre-recorded DVDs featuring television series, featuring drama, action, adventure, downloadable screensaver software, downloadable graphic files, mouse pads, headphones, earbuds. Okay. Then computer, video, interactive electronic game programs, and providing online video interactive electronic games and action figures and board games, bobbleheads. There's a style of mark. So you can see there's lots of Game of Thrones marks here. Lip balm. I didn't realize there was a Game of Thrones lip balm, etc., etc., etc. Home Box Office, a Delaware corporation doing business in New York, believes it will be damaged by registration of Game of Thorns for botanical gardens, art exhibition, gardens for public admission, museums, museum services, educational exhibitions, etc., under International Class 41. The design is this Game of Thorns mark here, which they very I wouldn't even know how to insert a tiny icon. Like, I would have to figure that out because I've never tried to inline insert something like that in Word. I usually expect that to blow up my document. As grounds, the opposer alleges that they operate widely distributed premium television channels and produce renowned, critically acclaimed television series Game of Thrones. Since long prior to the filing of applicant's application, they have produced marketed Game of Thrones. It's very popular. It is the world's most popular show. Yeah, they're establishing, in my humble opinion, they're starting to establish the overly famous mark here. The world's most popular show has translated into numerous awards Emmy Awards, Outstanding Drama. Opposer has produced the television series with attendant trade dress logos and designs. They go over a list here. There are some numbers if you want to look up their various trademarks for any reason. By virtue of popularity, Opposer has built up and now owns extremely valuable goodwill, and that Game of Thorns is capitalizing on their mark without their consent or permission. So they allege likelihood of confusion. They allege dilution. So let's go over those. A trademark is a source identifier. It is not like a copyright. It is a source identifier. So when you see Game of Thrones or when you see a text in that style, that you know that you are looking at a quality production made by the home box office, which you can get by going to, HBO Now or whatever.com. And that's the very, very most important part of the trademark protection, is that it identifies the source of goods properly. So the likelihood of confusion standard then isn't a likelihood of will somebody wonder. It's whether someone will be actually confused in the marketplace and go to a botanical gardens called Game of Thorns thinking that they are affiliated with or created by or otherwise representative of the quality and content of HBO and Game of Thrones. I kind of see HBO's argument here. Game of Thorns doesn't really mean anything without first Game of Thrones existing and being very popular. The icon here does look a little bit, ever so slightly, a little bit like the Game of Thrones design. It's using a similar font for the text. Doesn't use the 3 lines through the O or something. And no, you can't make the argument that it really says Game of Horns, because what they registered was Game of Thorns. And then let's go over to delusion. Subject to principles of equity, the owner of a famous mark that is distinctive inherently or through acquired distinctiveness shall be entitled to an injunction against a person who commences use of the mark name in commerce and is likely to cause dilution by blurring or dilution by tarnishment of the famous mark. For the purposes of paragraph 1, the famous mark is widely recognized if the general consuming public of the United States as a designation of source of the goods or services of the mark's owner. So that means that it probably is a famous mark. And determining whether the mark possesses the requisite degree of recognition includes the duration, extent, geographic reach, amount, volume, geographic extent of sales, extent and actual recognition of the mark, whether it was registered under an old act or a new act. So far, that sounds like Game of Thrones might just meet that standard for a famous mark. Dilution by blurring is association arising from the similarity between a mark or trade name and a famous mark that impairs the distinctiveness, and that mark or trade name impairs the distinctiveness of the famous mark. In determining whether the mark or trade name is likely to cause dilution by blurring, the court considers the degree of similarity, the degree of inherent or acquired distinctiveness of the famous mark, the extent to which the owner of the famous mark is engaging in the same use, the degree and recognition of the famous mark, whether the user of the mark or trade name has intended to create an association with the famous mark. So that sounds like it will come down to a subjective intent, which means HBO can ask in discovery and in depositions whether they knew what they were doing, whether there could be emails back and forth. Hey, what should we name the botanical gardens? Oh, let's name it Game of Thorns. That way we'll get associated with Game of Thrones. Well, that would be very damning, because that would be violating this subsection 5 here, and any actual association between the two, which that's arguable. So that's what dilution is basically trying to take advantage of someone else's trademark goodwill. Their trademark is already working for them well, and you're going to piggyback off of that, and in doing so, you're diluting their trademark. So what do we think of that? Let me know in the chat and comments below.
Yeah, I think HBO has a pretty good position. I mean, when we were trying to look this up, how many times did I, in the search type Game of Thrones, because I'm so used to seeing that phrasing that I kept reverting back. So it's like the very fact that when I was trying to type Thorns, I kept typing Thrones. It's like, yeah, that's a pretty famous mark.
Yeah, I agree. I could not get a Game of Thorns search to go without adding quotation marks.
Yeah. So we'll see what they come up with in terms of a response. They have 40 days to file their response. So we'll see what they come up with.
All right, everyone, and that is our show. Thank you very much for joining us. I am Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney, and of course with us today was Kurt Mueller, your favorite patent attorney. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you to our special guest in the studio here, Kaylee.
Hello.
This is a community-supported channel. Thank you very much for supporting us on patreon.com/LJFrench. Big thank you to the following October supporters at the $50 level: Jonathan Doe, John Steele, Gavin Barnard, Evie, Andy, Kyle Mudrock, Vera Montaigne, Sean McNamara, William Gonzalez, Michael Pierce, Grunkle Tia Marie, Terry Crisp, Richard Fournier, Michael Jones, Spirit Bear, and Jan the Great. Thank you very much for your support, and thank you to the $5 plus supporters who are scrolling on the LED panel behind me, and I will find room for you on the crawl at the end of the thing. Please continue to send in your stories. Please continue to donate money in support of our efforts, and we will continue to deliver. I believe we did 5 videos this week for you, which is pretty cool. And please continue to sub to our channel. We are sitting at 99,814 subscribers, and we would very, very, very much like to cross over into the 100,000 subscriber range there. So thank you again for joining me. I am Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney. Have a great Sunday and a great week. Love you all. Bye.